This is Christine Brown, and while I have to listen to this podcast as my motherly duty, you have the choice not to. My sons sometimes say some naughty things when they're trying to be funny, but really, they're just being stupid. Do you still want to listen? Go right ahead. I am not your mother.
Welcome back to the Patriots Dynasty podcast. It has been a while. We finished 2004 season, and then I'm guessing that nobody thought we would do the 2005 season, but here we are. And that is the royal we, because royally, my brothers are both headed to England for a wedding. My passport is still in the mail, so I am not going. So I've decided to do the podcast instead. Also, they, in full disclosure, both of the brothers wanted to skip 2005 and 2006 and go straight to 2007. But I said no. So I decided that I would need some help because I have done this before on my own in the past, and Greg has ripped that to shreds. So I've decided to call in our, you've heard us talk about him before in the past, but our intern, Tim. He is going to be joining us today. So, Tim, nice to have you on, bud.
Pleasure to be on.
Nice. All right. And I have to say, I love my brothers. I enjoy doing this with them. It's a breath of fresh air to have somebody else who actually prepares for a podcast other than me. We've been chatting back and forth, and you've actually done some of the work to do the prep, and that is a very new idea for me. I'm not used to this.
Well, I'm just glad to be able to be the next man up, and work my way up the rankings.
You're gonna do your job. I like that. Yeah.
I hope that I've done that up to this point. So
yeah, we're gonna have to ask Greg if he knows who Wally Pip is when he gets back, if he comes back. Fucking Greg. All right. So like I said, we are starting 2005. We're actually going to do it. We've done this 2002 where it didn't end in a Super Bowl, and that was tough. I'm not going to lie. So Tim, you're getting yourself into something here. But I think we just jump right into it. 2005 week 1 opening night of the 2005 season. This was the first, the opening game that the Patriots so often play in because they are the Super Bowl winners.
Yep.
Although I believe they didn't do it the last time they won the Super Bowl, right? They weren't the opening night game after the most recent Rams Super Bowl. I think the season after they didn't open the season.
Well, I found it weird that for this one, I didn't know that every season started off on a Thursday. I didn't know that it kicked off on a Thursday.
It didn't always used to, but I think right around this time is when that started. It was that Thursday night game. Yeah, but it used to just be opening weekend, but then they started that one special game to kick off the season.
Yeah, because I hadn't noticed that before, and I don't know how closely I followed last year as far as trying to keep up. Because I'm not exactly sure when I jumped in. I have listened to every episode. So.
You are. I think you're one of two. I believe Mama Brown is probably listening. No, she didn't listen to the Cam Newton erotica one. So if you listen to that one, then you've got her beat.
Yeah.
All right. So this was opening night. And part of the whole, and we'll talk about the pregame first and the banner and everything, but a lot of the coming back from commercial intro things, they kept talking about how the Sunday night game was a double header because of Hurricane Katrina, which had just happened.
Right.
Which I completely actually forgotten about.
That definitely takes up a huge part of the season, and even is a big reason why Troy Brown was happy with this decision to come back, because he was it was a blessing. I got to do so many good things.
Yeah. But also, I mean, to your point, Troy Brown, beginning of in the offseason, was released by the Patriots.
Yep.
And was offered a bigger contract by the Saints, but decided to come back for the vet minimum.
And he was guaranteed he was going to be their number 3 receiver. And
right. Yeah.
New England, he had really no footing.
No, yeah, he was way down the depth chart because they had obviously Branch and Patton and Givens, but they also brought in a few.
Well, Givens left. I mean, not Givens. Patton left to go to Redskins.
Right. And that worked out well, as going to the Redskins often does.
Yeah.
Sure, he got paid though. But yeah,
he was paid to be their number one.
Well, oh, that's right. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he got like big time money.
Yeah, and I was reading a bunch of stuff in the Globe. Like I've always had a soft spot for obviously Troy Brown, but David Patton too, because he was so crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading that he was like just so appreciative to be part of the Patriots and all that stuff, and he was really gonna he was hoping to turn the Redskins around. So. And didn't get to do that, but
one man cannot turn around the Redskins. No. It's not happening. Although they might be selling soon, so that would be interesting.
Yeah.
So actually, let's talk about the offseason before we get into any of the kind of other stuff.
Okay.
Because this was kind of a tumultuous offseason. I mean, the Patriots, they win a Super Bowl and you have a lot of turnover because you're the best and people try to poach your players and coach and everything, but this offseason, there was a lot of coaching trained specifically because both the offensive and defensive coordinators left. Charlie Weiss went to coach Notre Dame. Did not work out well, I don't believe. And Romeo Crennel went to coach Cleveland. And he poached somebody too, didn't he?
Joe Andruzzi signed over there because he ended up getting paid. I think he poached some coaching staff too.
Yeah.
There was someone that he wanted specifically. Was it Mangini? I think he wanted Mangini, and
oh really?
And then Belichick ended up outbidding him.
Oh no!
I read something about that in the Globe. Yeah, because I guess Romeo was. Yeah, I know that if we reach around this number, we won't be able to get him. So He worked to keep him.
All right. So those two left, and like you said, they promoted Mangini as the defensive coordinator, and technically didn't name anybody the offensive coordinator, which everybody was up in arms with lately about the Patriots doing that. But this obviously isn't the first time they've done it. And actually, they made a comment in the broadcast that there was another team that didn't do that this year. In 2005, and that was the Dallas Cowboys with Bill Parcells. Did not name an offensive coordinator.
Classic.
right. So it's obviously something that runs in that tree. But it was, for all intents and purposes, Josh McDaniels running the offense, calling the plays. They actually cut to him, and you could see him calling in the plays to Tom Brady. But I found something in. This is nice because I don't have to defend the fact that I can read to my brothers who can't. But I was reading some of the books that I have, and in War Room by Michael Hawley, he talked about this specifically. Mm-hmm. And actually, the receivers coach at the time was Brian Daboll, who was a year older than Josh McDaniels, and was the one that recommended McDaniels to the Patriots when they were looking for an entry-level employee in 2001. And gotcha. So McDaniels got on the team and then was promoted to offensive coordinator ahead of him, would eventually kind of lead to Brian Daboll leaving the team because of that rift. Mm. So kind of some foreshadowing there, which is interesting. So we have, your offensive and defensive coordinator leaving, kind of a lot. Ty Law also left your shutdown corner, which is something that Belichick does very well with when he has a lockdown corner. Those defenses are usually pretty historic, which we saw in 2003 and 2004. But even after the 2003 Super Bowl, Ty Law actually wanted out because he saw what happened to Lawyer Malloy. And he also saw everybody getting a ton of money. So in free agency. So he basically just came out and said, the quote is, "I no longer want to be a Patriot," he said. "I can't even see myself putting on that uniform again. That's how bad I feel about playing here." That was 2003 and after 2003. So he did play 2004, but then got released because, basically the Patriots couldn't pay him enough and he was just done with them. So he decided to leave, went to the Jets. Another great decision by a former Patriot. Went for the money, got paid a shit ton, and the Jets, I think, finished with 4 wins on the season, 2005.
Yeah, they didn't do too hot.
Not so great.
Yeah.
We'll get to them later, though. Let's see what else. Oh, the big news. We'll get to that at the end, actually. Couple other small things. The draft. This draft was, I think, a wild one. The 2005 draft was most notable for the 24th pick, which was Aaron Rodgers, and he fell. I remember watching that. It was like one of the first drafts I actually watched, and watching Aaron Rodgers sitting there just kind of pouting at the table because he thought he was going to be like a top 10 pick, and he was dropping and dropping and dropping. Is a face that I'll always remember, and I think I'm wondering if that has dictated a lot of like how he's run his career over the past decade or however long it's been.
Longer than a decade.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Close to another 20.
Other notable draft picks in that were, let's see.
Alex Smith. He won number 1.
Yeah. A bunch of solid running back. I say Ronnie Brown was in there. Braylon Edwards, Adam Jones, Pac-Man Jones was up there. Antrell Roll, Carlos Rogers, DeMarcus Ware, Sean Merriman. Like this is kind of a pretty top end heavy draft.
Funny because something I was reading in those Globe articles, because of the trades that Belichick made, people were asking him questions, and he said, it wasn't one of the best drafts out there. So he wasn't thoroughly impressed, but there were some pretty decent guys that were in there.
Yeah, at the top. I mean, the Patriots draft themselves, obviously picking 32nd in each round will kind of get you less than what you would expect to get, higher up that you see, which right. I think is one of those things where, everybody tries to bash Belichick for the way he drafts. But I mean, if you're picking last every round, like you're not going to be getting these top 10 guys because they go in the top 10 and you're never picking there. Yeah. But in typical New England sports talk, New England sports media fashion, Kevin Mannix from the Herald had a review of the first day pick, the first round pick, which happened to be, I'll just read the quote. Quote, the Pats' decision to take offensive lineman Logan Mankins and pass on a much higher rated players like safety Brodney Poole and linebacker Barrett Rudd seemed even worse a day later, wrote Kevin Mannix in the Herald. He used an analogy of the boxer Jake LaMotta being bloodied even worse than he imagined. Quote, nobody was expecting the Pats to walk away with best-in-show hardware. Not many Super Bowl champs get that honor. Picking at the end of each round without the benefit of multiple picks in the early rounds pretty much eliminates that chance. But even when you factor in the position of the picks, the Patriots came away looking barely average because they blew the chance to get a playmaker with that first pick. That's not familiar. It sounds like basically Twitter during every draft the Patriots have ever had.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, oh, this was a failure of a draft because they didn't get weapons for Tom Brady. And I mean, I feel I don't know about you, but I've heard of Logan Mankins before. Do you recognize that name? Yeah.
Yep.
I think he did okay, right?
Yeah, he did all right.
Yeah, he was pretty much a stalwart. Let's see, in that other terrible draft that they had, Ellis Hobbs, a starting cornerback they had for a while. Also, I believe holds the record for the longest kick return in Patriots history, like 107 or 109 yards.
Yeah, I feel like that was against like the Vikings or something.
I believe it was opening day against the Jets in 2007. Yeah, that game.
Even better.
Nick Kazher in the third. Not bad. James Sanders, a safety who played for a while. And then pick 230 in the 7th round. Quarterback out of Southern California, Matt Castle.
Yep.
Can't say, I mean, it's not maybe some of the other drafts they've had where they're getting guys like Will Fork and all these defensive, Hall of Famers. But a solid draft, I would say.
Yeah, especially with the linemen, because they started pretty much right away, and we're.
Yeah, I mean that's if Belichick can pick somebody, it's a lineman
for sure,
and also a backup quarterback.
Yep, very good at that.
Yeah,
I will hang around.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see who else left. Ted Johnson left. He retired after basically being diagnosed before it was a thing with CTE. Back in 2005, basically he went to his doctor because he was having like headaches and all sorts of like weird shit going on. And his doctor's like, yeah, this is from like all your concussions. You should stop playing football. So he basically hung it up like, I think pretty close to the beginning of the season. Yeah.
It was the day before training camp.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I thought he was trying to stick it to Bill. I was trying to find info on that. If he was just trying to be like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
But I didn't find anything on that. And he didn't have any, like, Belichick didn't have any disparaging remarks.
No, I have him here because from the Dynasty book by Jeff Benedict, a pretty recent book actually, talked about it, actually like Ted Johnson called up Robert Kraft and was like told him about it, and so Kraft paid Johnson his $400,000 roster bonus that he would have been entitled to if he had played. And then went and drank beers in Kraft's living room that night.
And best thing if you're having like symptoms from
oh yeah, right. I mean, what's a beer? And then Belichick put his own public statement out. Said Ted informed me of his decision today, and we had a good discussion. Although his retirement is unexpected, we thoroughly respect his decision, support him as he moves on. It goes without saying, but Ted Johnson is a class act. He was a solid contributor to this defense and the New England Patriots organization his entire career. Ted's signature was a work ethic and toughness that were second to none. He retires a champion. It does kind of touch on their relationship. It says Belichick's relationship with Johnson has been contentious. Back in 2002, things got so bad between them that Johnson had cleaned out his locker, stormed out of the facility, and threatened to quit. Quote, we went from, I wanted out of there, I hated the man, I resented him, I was angry, hurt, disgusted, to being captain in the next year, Johnson said of that time period. And honestly, we put it behind us. But as Johnson stepped away from the Patriots, his view toward Belichick would harden. Don't know why. But if you listen to him on the radio now, it has not softened. He hates Bill Belichick to the point where he basically takes pot shots at him now.
Hey, I mean, I don't mind it. I'm not one to not criticize.
I am. And Bill, I trust.
Yeah, I'm a little like in between that.
Yeah, y'all can go fuck yourself.
I do side with the other Brown brothers on that front.
He's given you the best 20 years of your life, and this is how you're going to repay him by questioning everything he does?
It's not questioning everything he does, but you have to be adaptable and you have to be open. And he has definitely done that. But I just think, I don't know. I feel like the way he's approaching, as far as bringing players on, like his approach to that, I think is dated. He doesn't want to pay people, and with the success that he hasn't had in the draft the last, so many odd years, it just reflects that way. Like, you have to have good people, like, willing to prove it, to do good, and then that work out. He's not a good gambler anymore. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know. We'll see.
Sorry.
No, hey, everybody's got their opinion. I just disagree. I think yours is
That's fine.
Opinion.
That's okay. That's all right.
Sucks.
Hey, I've been wrong so many times before. So
have I. I owe Grant a jersey for this past season.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up
but he owes me one for the season before. So
so it's a wash.
Yeah, I think we're gonna trade baby jerseys.
There you go. That'll be perfect.
Yeah, that'll be good. So I got to figure out what to get.
Yeah,
my son for a jersey. I don't know. Like, what do you do?
I think you go with a classic so that you bring him up You know,
I mean, he's going to get that by default because his dad runs a fucking Patriots Dynasty podcast. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure if I get like, I don't know, do I get like a Mac Jones one now and hope Mac Jones sticks around? Like, who's gonna be that longevity now? Like the guy, like, yeah, that's the jersey you get.
Maybe Judon
into it. That right? That's close thing I can think of. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. It's a tough one.
Rookies. I mean, you don't want to get a running backs one because, I mean, running backs don't last in this league or on this team.
Definitely not on this team.
Yeah, I mean, sucks. Damian Harris is gone.
Yep.
Sucks more if you went to the Bills. That's brutal. Speaking of sucks, though, some more off-season talk involving our best bud Vladimir Putin. Believe it or not. And this, I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know why I remember this, but I did. But basically, Kraft was over in Russia, like with some like business leaders trying to like get some, business started with the Russians and like ease those tensions and such. And so they were doing like a photo, like a group photo with Putin and like some other guys. And Kraft pulled out his Super Bowl ring that he just got to show it to Putin. Putin puts it on and then keeps it. And Kraft's like, yo, what the fuck? And so Kraft's like, I don't know what to do because, like, we're supposed to be making a good impression with fucking Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia. And he just stole my ring. And then it turned to like this whole fucking thing. It was like this huge, like, political, like, not a scandal, but just like a big fucking deal because, like, Putin's like, well, he gave it to me. And Kraft is like, dude, it has my name inscribed on it. Like, why would I give you that? And so he basically just like the Bush administration, who was president at the time, basically decided that he would honor their request and let President Putin keep the ring. Here's a quote. At that point, I decided to give him the ring as a symbol of the respect and admiration that I have for the Russian people and the leadership of President Putin, Kraft said. Which that quote also aged like milk, but perhaps not the best leadership being shown at the moment. But yeah. So it's been a wild off season.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah, and that's only the small stuff because the big thing that we've been kind of skirting around is Teddy Bruschi, where was it like a week after.
Maybe a month.
Yeah. Oh, it was like a few days after, I think it was the Pro Bowl. Because he and Brady were at the Pro Bowl together. And Brady was like talking about how we're gonna do the 3-peat because no team has ever in the NFL has ever done it. And so that was the conversation they had 36 hours before. And then in true Teddy Bruschi fashion, he was asleep at night. He was having a dream that he was tackling Jerome Bettis. And he kind of like in the dream, he like braced for collision. But like he did it physically. And when he woke up, he was like all like his body was all tight. Like his fists were clenched, his arms extended, his muscles contracted. He felt pins and needle sensation in his left arm and leg. This is at 4 a.m. And so he's like, shit, this sort of stuff like happens to football players. Like they get banged up all the time. Like their bodies don't work and all this shit. So he's just like, I'm just going to go, walk it off. I'm going to go to the bathroom, take a whiz. And he stood up and like almost fell over. He couldn't see out of his left eye. And so basically he had a stroke in the middle of the night. And it turns out it was because he had a small hole in his heart. And, there was a blood clot that somehow affected that and didn't get to his brain, but like he had a stroke. And I don't know if you remember the video of like him returning home from the hospital.
He's in a wheelchair, right?
He could like barely walk, and he was like having to be held up, and it was like real rough.
It's like watching your hero and finding out that he's human.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's Teddy Bruschi, the guy that just like throws his body at people. Like his whole move is like he comes in on the blitz and the running back tries to go low, so he just like jumps over them,
he just
flip his legs, and just like kamikazes into the quarterback for the sack. Like this is what he does.
He just goes like head first. He's nuts.
Into everything, and now you're seeing him being like carried by his wife into his house. You're like, well, I mean, he's
never playing again.
Yeah. Turns out that wasn't the case. And so he actually recovered really well to the point where right before the season, like they weren't like he had actually come out and said, I'm not playing again. And I think the commentators in the game actually talked about how, I think I have the quote here. Because they're obviously going to talk about him. And they said, where is it? Al Michaels. It was Al Michaels and John Madden on the
it was so good too.
Fucking fantastic.
So good.
Love John Madden.
I did not appreciate him like at time because I was 11.
We didn't. Yeah.
And I didn't. Oh God.
I feel like he will eventually kind of like start to fade down the stretch because I just remember like everybody, he was the butt of all the jokes.
Yeah.
Like John Madden be like, oh, well, the team to score the most points is going to win the game, But like at this point, I don't know, this is his peak or whatever, but he is phenomenal. Super like approachable stuff. He's breaking everything down and like pointing out like great blocks and things like that on running plays, like just like on the fly. He has him queuing it up, and it's amazing.
It's the one that got me giggling. Kerry Collins' first throw is a throw to Jerry Porter, and he says that looks like the first throw on the road against the defending world champs.
Yeah, because it was not.
I was like.
Right. That's right. Yeah,
he was so right.
He fucking did. It was not. It like everything just looked unnatural. Like the route didn't look quite right, and Kerry Collins rolling out and throwing it, and it's just like, oof, that looks stiff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Al Michaels made a comment. They showed Bruschi on the sideline. Says Bruschi hopes to play again this season, but the chances of that are infinitesimal because it's Al Michaels. He loves big words.
Yeah.
But what he didn't know is right before the beginning of the season, Bruschi went and met with Belichick and just told him that he wanted to remain on the PUP list. And Belichick's like, why would you want to do that? Like, the only reason I would keep you on the PUP list is if you want to return to the active roster in 2005. Like, that's what we use that for. And I guess Belichick's like, let me get this straight. There's still no way of you playing this year at all, right? And Bruschi just like pause and say anything. And then eventually Bruschi's like, I'm going to play this year. And Belichick's like, whoa, I want to make sure we're on the same page here. Are you telling me that going out there and picking up another linebacker this year would be the wrong move? And Bruschi's like, yeah, that would be the wrong move. So they basically just said, fuck it, we're not going to pick up another linebacker. We've got fucking Monty Beasel and Chad Brown. That'll do.
So bad for Chad Brown.
Didn't know what he was getting himself into. I thought he'd be backing up some world-class linebackers, learning from them, but that did not happen.
Nope.
Yeah. So that is the offseason. Just a bit of a dumpster fire, really, all the way around. I actually remember coming into the 2005 season not being as confident as I normally was because of all the crap that had happened.
Absolutely.
I mean, you lose guys every year, but just the amount of guys you lost, the type of guys you lost in terms of like leadership and stuff like that.
You lose Roman Pfeiffer too.
Yeah, exactly. Who was top quality linebacker, like one of those just like older dudes who knows what he's doing, is that leader in the locker room, was a big part of like a lot of those Super Bowl runs, even though not necessarily like in playing time, but just like, you read all these stories about this defense and they're just like, we had all these calls and checks and like the call would come in from the sideline and Bruschi would like relay the call, but it didn't matter because we all knew what we had to do already anyway. Like
right.
we're just like call and response. It wasn't like, oh, this is what we need to do. And then like apparently in the 2004 Super Bowl, they implemented a whole new like scheme just to fuck with the Eagles and their offense because, and like unquestionably, like, yeah, of course we're going to implement something brand new on the eve of the Super Bowl because, they were just like that tight knit and like everybody knew what everybody else was doing. Like Seymour would just turn around and be like, hey, I'm going to like fucking do a little bit different on this stunt. And then like all the linebackers like, yep, got it. And they would just know exactly how to shift to maximize like what they need to do on everything. But you lost a lot of those guys.
Yep.
So this season looked,
and that's different. Probably what Chad Brown's coming in for, to replace Roman Pfeiffer.
I would think so, yeah. But even in this game, you saw the Patriots. I think at times they, again, John Madden pointed this out, they started playing a 3-4, but they were giving up some long runs, which is what apparently a Norv Turner offense is known for, is the running game, which I wasn't aware of. I always saw him as like a passing guru, but they went through the list of all his running backs when he was like offensive coordinator or coach, and they all had like the best season of their lives. Like Ricky Williams running for almost 2,000 yards, like that sort of shit.
Was that when he was with the Saints?
No, the Dolphins, I believe.
The Dolphins. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So he's just, this is what should have been on paper a pretty good offense. But yeah, so Belichick is swapping. They started 3-4, and then they moved to a 4-3. On some plays, they only had 2 defensive linemen on the field. They're still doing their Patriot thing. But you're trying to do it with new guys, which is tougher. And I think we'll see that as the season goes on when the Patriots start giving up a bit more points than you're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Especially coming from 2003, 2004, right? That's a sad look you just gave me, Tim.
It's just not great. Especially that first drive where they give up a touchdown in like less than 4 minutes. Like,
yep,
that's a culture shock. Like, okay, because there was a stat that they put up. That was the first opening drive touchdown they had given up in 31 games.
Yeah, almost 2 full seasons. They haven't done it.
Like that's an adjustment. It's a foreshadow for what's to come later on.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it was tough. But also let's talk about this Oakland Raiders team. I haven't really touched on them much. Have we mentioned that it was the Raiders they're playing? I'm all over.
They played the Raiders. Oh, we also forgot to talk about the
the
pregame
celebration. Jesus
Christ.
I have some notes.
Because I need to know what you thought of that. Did you see you saw the video, right?
I saw the video.
Okay.
So I like heavy metal. It's a genre of music I listen to. I listened to Ozzy Osbourne in the past. I have actually learned how to play Crazy Train on the guitar because I love it so much. This was not a good rendition, first of all.
Not great.
Ozzy, I hate to say it. I was going to say I hate to talk ill of the dead, but he will never actually die, so that's fine. But he did not have it anymore in 2005. I don't know if he's still touring or not. He probably is because it's Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not sure he knew where he was.
He didn't seem there with everyone because when he started saying, "Come on, clap," I was like.
Yeah, and it seemed like he was like out of tune and not quite on beat. It was tough to the audio wasn't great anyway, so it's like he was all you could hear and he was singing his own song out of tune. That was tough. But I will say the way it started, they just had like this massive, the Patriot head, like the helmet that the team runs out of.
Right.
They had that, but the top opened up and the band was inside that. I'm like, all right, this is good. And then the band started playing. I'm like, oh, well, never mind. Good while it lasts. And then it will cut to Bob Kraft being like, oh, welcome to the new season and your world champion New England Patriots. Also not looking as svelte as we're used to seeing Bob Kraft there. He looked like he was putting on a couple of LBs there.
Yeah, he didn't look
set man.
Great. Like, I think, but you have to put it into context. He has just won 2 straight Super Bowls. So his off seasons, maybe, know?
Yep. He's been eating well, celebrating a lot. And he did his, I don't think he's drunk when he gives these speeches, but he just kind of has that like real slight slur when he,
I know what you mean.
Speaking in front of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And usually it's like after, an AFC championship game, you're like, oh, fucking great. He's hammered. That's awesome. But this is like before the season kicked off. You're like, maybe that's just how he talks in these things. It's just like ever so slightly like, oh, maybe you drank. I'm not sure. But then like that was, I don't think they planned it further than that because, and then like the Patriots, the song is playing and the Patriots come out to like fireworks and they all run out of
weird.
Underneath. Yeah. So they all run out, but then they all just like stand on the field. But like Crazy Train's still playing, the lights are still going and everything, but they're all just like, now what do we do? So it was like
they pan up to Freddie Prinze Jr.
Right? Who's like thinking this is MTV, like, we'll be right back with the next act. And like, the next act is football, homie. I don't know what is happening here. And like the team just kind of like meandering around the field, like talking to each other. I'm like, what? So I'm like, my first thought was like, Brady didn't seem all that impressed. He was just like walking around, trying to loosen up and whatnot in the middle of a fucking Crazy Train.
Yeah, it was a mess. So
I'm like, I need to know what Belichick thought of this. Like, what is Belichick doing? And they didn't show anything in the video. I'm like, oh man, that would have been great to see. But then during the broadcast, John Madden actually like played a clip of Belichick and his assistant coaches sitting on the bench, going through their game plan while all of this is happening, like oblivious to the fact that anything is going on. I'm like, that is fucking perfect. That's exactly how I want my coach to be.
Yeah, he was very not impressed at all.
Could not care less.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So the one thing that I did see on this that I thought was really funny, so I guess people that were there, they had like something in Detroit because that's where the Super Bowl was going to be. So the Rolling Stones played there, and then Kanye West performed. Oh, no. But this was right after he did the George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Yeah.
So I guess people in the stands were all booing throughout that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So everyone was like, the whole vibe was just completely off. And Ozzy comes out after that. So it's just like, what are you guys doing? And they just, and then they had Trisha Yearwood, who I've never even heard of, Maroon 5, Santana.
Yeah, it's just like a random
Green Day
collection.
Too. Just
random ass collection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because, the NFL trying to branch to everybody and bring everyone in
all at once. Yeah, because Crazy Train makes sense and Ozzy makes sense because they play that after, like that's what the team runs out to every game. So
right.
To have him perform it live, like that makes sense. But the rest of it's like, what the fuck is this? But I'm wondering if, like you were kind of talking about, is was this kind of one of the first, opening nights where it's on the Thursday night and this is the only game in town. It's a big fucking deal. And, maybe still working the kinks out on like how to make that a presentation. Yeah. So I think the only other kind of pregame thing is that this, the Raiders, I don't know if this is why they were picked to be the opener, but this is the Raiders' first time back in New England since the Snow Bowl and the Tuck Rule. And we talked about it, I believe it was 2002 when they had their rematch in Oakland. And the intro to that game was Al Davis being super pissy about the Tuck Rule. And he was like so bitter and so just like awful about it. So I was wondering if he was still being a bitch about it in 2005. My guess is probably.
It's Al Davis.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a guy who, forgives and forgets. Doesn't seem like his style.
Not that quickly, at least.
Just in general, like he doesn't seem like a forgiving type of guy. He's sued the NFL before, so I mean, I think he's probably still angry, even though he's not alive. So I'm sure he's got some middle fingers pointed in the general direction of New England, wherever he's buried. So that's fun because, spoiler alert, the Patriots would win this game, which is great because they don't win all of them like we're used to, or they don't. I mean, they win most of them because it is the early 2000 Patriots. But I think this is kind of kind of that 2002 sort of feel where they just never really get in sync. Suffer a handful of injuries, like a bunch of injuries actually in this game. Oh, not this game, this season. I believe. Right
off the bat, we have some injuries.
Yeah,
Chad Scott, Tyrone Poole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of them because where I read it. Here we go. Overall, injuries caused the Patriots to start 45 different players at one point or another during the season. An NFL record for a division champion, breaking the record of 42 set by the Patriots in 2003. So they've done it before, but like
crazy
45. I mean, and in 2003,
that's a historic defense too,
right? They're starting. 2003 was not the year that they started. Troy Brown at cornerback, but this was just it's one of those, and I feel like that happens too. Like when the Patriots don't go far in the playoffs, it's usually because of injuries and nothing else. I mean, just think about some of those like mid 2010 teams, like before they actually won in 2014. Like they had a whole bunch of even the Super Bowl in 2012 where Gronk got injured right down the stretch and they weren't quite the same team in the playoffs and limped into the Super Bowl, and then he tried to go and he couldn't, and like they lost because of it. And same with that season where Dion Lewis got hurt and they limped into Denver and couldn't win that one.
We limped into Denver a few times.
2014, I don't remember. Yeah. I feel like whenever Denver beats the Patriots, it's because the Patriots limp there.
And we go to Denver.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about these Raiders because on paper they looked much improved. In theory, they had a bad draft. I will say that, but they did make a big splash by trading linebacker Napoleon Harris and their first round pick, which was number 7 overall, and a 2005 7th round pick to Minnesota for wide receiver Randy Moss. And I saw that you posted a Globe snippet of how people were talking about the Vikings getting better by subtraction. And there was some super snarky, I don't know who wrote it, but some super snarky thing about, let's see how that works out. I don't think it did.
Yeah, Madden was like big on that. He said that in the broadcast too. He's like, I don't know how anyone can think you can take 90 touchdowns off your team and you get better.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is Randy Moss, still a world-class athlete, world-class wide receiver, just a bit disgruntled. Has had some run-ins with teammates and coaches and whatnot, but this would not be the best Randy Moss. And watching this game, like I remember watching, I think we actually saw Randy Moss on the Vikings either last year or the year before, in 03 or 04, and it looked right. Randy Moss wearing number 81, wherever it was, on the Vikings, looked right. He's wearing that purple, him and Chris Carter. It looked good. And then in the Patriots, it made sense just because of, all the records they set with him and Brady. But seeing him on the Raiders just looks off. You know what I mean? It doesn't look right. Like it's
just, I think it reminds you of like Randy and his like Randy being Randy as much as he can. Yeah. It was like it got the worst out of him having that Raiders jersey.
I think so. Yeah. And he's number 18 as well, which doesn't look right. And he's just like him in the silver and black. It's kind of like watching Jerry Rice there too. Like it just doesn't feel right. Because the Raiders are, I think like the Raiders are such an icon of like, this is who the Raiders are.
They're bad.
Yeah. But those like, and they have this like aura, but these other like big name players like a Randy Moss or Dre Rice, they already have that. And so to like try to mesh the two, it just doesn't fit in my head for some reason. I can't figure out why. Jamarcus Russell, yeah, it fits. You know, like I will always see Jamarcus Russell as a Raider. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, Randy Moss. I won't say it didn't work out. He had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. And it also, I think, helps Jerry Porter, who's the other wide receiver of this team, go for 942 and 5 touchdowns. So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I always like
especially when you have Kerry Collins throwing you the ball.
Yeah.
Who the broadcast was not hugely I won't say they were critical of him, but they weren't exactly like supportive of him. And they kept talking about like how he was like turning over a new leaf after quitting on the Panthers. And I didn't remember anything about that. Did you?
No.
Yeah. So I looked it up because like, what the fuck? He quit on the Panthers? Like, cause he was there like the Panthers' first ever draft pick, I thought, right? Expansion draft.
Yeah.
So it turns out he was drafted in 95. They went to the playoffs in 96. And he was like, he was the reason why he threw for a bunch of yards and touchdowns. And it was like, the Panther, I think the Panthers and the Jaguars both made the playoffs in their second year. And it was like this bananas thing. And then 97, he didn't do so great. And they finished 7-9. And then apparently, according to Wikipedia anyway, Carolina started the 98 season with Collins as a starting quarterback. After an 0-4 start, Collins walked into head coach Dom Capers' office and, as Collins later put it, told Coach Capers, "My heart's not in it. I'm not happy and I don't feel like I can play right now."
What?
He asked to be traded, but was instead placed on waivers by Carolina during the 98 season and subsequently signed with the Saints to finish the season. Collins would later say that he did not intend to quit the Panthers, only to sit out for a few weeks. However, Capers interpreted his request as quitting on the team and he was released. He later admitted that much of his erratic behavior was due to his struggles with alcoholism. After being arrested for drunk driving later that year, he was ordered by the NFL to seek treatment for alcohol abuse. So, rock bottom, apparently. No idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea that happened. So this is kind of like, because I
just remember him like being on the Giants, really. I don't remember the years before that.
Right, exactly, yeah. So, I mean, and this is kind of the lost time, too, for him. But I guess this is part of his redemption tour of he's coming to the Raiders. He's got Randy Moss and he's got some big guys. They traded for Curtis Martin's backup in the Jets, Lamont Jordan. And like this on paper looks like a pretty good offense.
Definitely look good on that first drive.
Yeah. And that was about it for the season for them, because they finished 4-12 and finished the season 23rd in points for and 21st in offensive yards. Not great. They also upgraded their defense. They picked
Did they?
Again on paper. This feels very Washingtonian, let's say, where they swiped a couple of familiar faces in Bobby Hamilton and Ted Washington, Mount Washington, and also picked up Warren Sapp from I believe it was in the Buccaneers before. And so they stocked that offensive line, or the defensive line rather, with big time names, because they said their leading sacker last year, I don't even fucking remember who it was because it was like not a huge name.
Tommy Kelly.
Yes. He led the team with 4 sacks the season before. So they had issues getting pressure on the quarterback, spent a bunch of money on defensive linemen, and got a whole 0 sacks in this game. So good for them.
And they got they had a future Patriot in Derek Burgess, right? We had him at the end of his career, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Who was, I believe, led the team in sacks with 16 this year. So
wow.
He paid off. Yeah. 16 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, made the Pro Bowl because of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So him and Tommy Kelly had 4.5 sacks. So they got some pressure. The one thing they couldn't get was interceptions. They forced 5 on the season.
Wow.
Not so good. So turnovers were a problem, or lack thereof, I should say, was a problem. But the Patriots never really had a lot of issue with Norv Turner-led teams in general. This was one of 6 games they would play against them, and the Patriots were 5-1 versus Norv Turner-led teams. Only loss was in 2008 versus the Chargers, which 2008 was one of those weird years too, so that doesn't really surprise me. But also, I don't know if you can give that to Norv Turner, if we're being honest. We had that's another notable name that has left, that they're seeing again, is the defensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders in Rob Ryan, who was the linebackers coach for 4 years with the Patriots. Also some names you might recognize. The secondary coach is Chuck Pagano, noted failed Colts head coach, who took over for, was he the one that took over for, he's the one that ruined Andrew Luck, right? Chuck Pagano?
Believe so, yeah.
Yeah, because he took over in 2012, went 11-5 3 years in a row, then 8-8, 8-8, 4-12, and then he was fired. So downward trend there. Wink Martindale, who I believe is the Giants defensive coordinator now, was the inside linebackers coach, which seems like that seems like you're just giving him a title. Like, oh no, you get to coach the linebackers, not all of them, just the inside linebackers. Congratulations.
You have dominion over 2 players.
Yeah, exactly. Neither of which seem to have done very well. So I can see why he's moving on it. But yeah, Warren Sapp came over. Nnamdi Asomugha came over. Asomugha. I don't know. Who had 14 passes defended, 60 tackles, and 0 other stats. So good for him. Because I thought this was like his peak too, but apparently not.
I don't know how early in his career this is.
I don't either. Because I remember I thought him and Champ Bailey were supposed to be like the lockdown corners of the NFL, and then like they just, I don't know, they fell off for some reason.
Yeah.
Warren Sapp was second on the team with 5 sacks, which is pretty impressive considering he was playing defensive tackle. And that's kind of like all she wrote for the Oakland Raiders. Like they look better on paper than they actually performed. I think a lot of that had to do with not just turnovers, because Kerry Collins, at least in this game, seemed like his whole thing was just to chuck it up and, fuck it. Randy Moss is down there somewhere, sort of thing.
Yep.
Which kind of worked in this game, not gonna lie. Randy Moss finished with like 2 catches for over 100 yards or something ridiculous. But Kerry Collins was chucking into like triple coverage. Like, Randy Moss is down there. The worst is going to happen is going to be incomplete, or Randy Moss will, pad my stats. So Kerry Collins had a bunch of turnovers, and he just, I don't know, he wasn't, he didn't feel like a leader of an offense. I don't know what the fuck I was talking about.
Well, I think not by the end of it, he didn't look that way, but that first drive, I definitely was like, I was scared because I've been focusing on those linebackers, and Madden was the one to say it. He just said they really sold out for the run on that play action fake, and it was both Monty Beisel and Chad Brown that did that. But
the new guys,
they're stepping into big shoes, and Chad Brown says that too. So the only other note that I had for that was Lamont Jordan should have been the first fat head poster, because his head is massive. It's a really big head.
He's just a bobblehead.
Dude, he was running down that field he was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. Like
he was, yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the game too, it looked like I wrote down like he was running well in the game. I thought he was averaging like 8 yards a carry, but by the end of it, like the Patriots kind of like sorted themselves out.
Yeah,
and he by the end of the game was averaging less than 4 yards a carry, which sounds like not great, but I think we can talk about Corey Dillon. Speaking of not great, did not have a good game. Especially early. He started off 4 carries for -3 yards. Early in the game, I think even the commentators made a point to call out that, where was it? Oh yeah. The Patriots drove down the field the first 2 times, scored a field goal and a touchdown. And after the second drive, the Patriots had 132 passing yards and 1 rushing yard. And I don't know if that 1 rushing yard was even Corey Dillon's. I think it was Kevin Fox. So he had a tough day, and they showed after that second touchdown, or after the first touchdown rather, Brady was on the sidelines kind of like trying to fire up Corey Dillon, was like getting in his face and was like trying to pump him up, and Corey Dillon looked a little like pissy about something. So I don't know if like this is kind of the beginning of the end for him too, because obviously he doesn't recreate what he had in 2004, but he didn't quite look the same. Wasn't breaking tackles, wasn't getting around the corner like he used to. I was like, when a running back falls off, they fall off fast. But he finished 23 carries, 63 yards for 2.7 yards a carry, which not great. But he did have 2 touchdowns, so fuck it, right?
Yeah, we'll take it.
That's a decent fantasy stats. Some Jerome Bettis stats right there.
For sure.
Are there any other new guys on the Patriots that we should talk about, do you think?
Well, Ben Watson, I mean, it's not a lot of like additions that we had,
right?
Because we mostly stayed the same, but it was a lot of like returning guys that you either didn't know about or were starting to question. So with Troy Brown coming back and Ben Watson, it was weird. Like the offense for this game, like it was like everyone had their drive. And it was like, all right, you go off, then you go off, then you go off. So that first drive, Ben Watson just looked like a man amongst boys. Like he's ripped. And he's still in great shape today.
Yeah, running over people. Yeah, it was great. And I actually forgotten that he was drafted the year before, like first round, right? And then was got injured out for the season, the first game.
I was so disappointed. I was so looking forward to him
and then they almost like kind of had to settle for Daniel Graham, who was their draft pick the year before that in the first round, who monster of a man, same sort of thing, looks like Ben Coates but can't catch like Ben Coates, unfortunately. But yeah, Ben Watson looked like you said, a man among boys. And I think they said he had like 2 catches on the first drive, and that was like more than he had all last season. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. That makes a ton of sense. But so he's kind of like already got his total for the for his career. He's doubled his catch total. But then you kind of like you said, you didn't really see him much after that. And then there was your patented Daniel Graham either running the wrong route or Brady overthrowing him. And having a couple drops, which is, par for the course. And also, I didn't realize Christian Fourier was still on this team, but I don't even remember where I found this. But they were talking about the whole turmoil in the offseason, and Fourier was kind of part of that. Because it says, on offense, tight end Christian Fourier had been told in a candid conversation with tight ends coach Jeff Davidson that this was likely his last year in Foxborough. Young tight ends, Daniel Graham and Ben Watson, needed more time to play. Fourier sulked when he heard the news, and then he says, quote, "I told myself, you're such a baby. I was pissed at myself for acting that way. In that instance, I decided to change my attitude." I don't know if he did, because, if you hear him on talk radio, he still sounds like a bit of a whiny baby. But, so, he's technically still on the team, but I don't think I saw him in this game.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing him. I do remember reading some things about him like in the off season. Nothing like that though. I never heard that quote. So that was definitely an interesting one to hear.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have a lot of good tight ends this year, so they're gonna plug them in when they need them.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, obviously we have this shitty little podcast that nobody listens to, but if it does ever get to the point where like we can get somebody like Bill Belichick on, the question I want to ask him is like, what is it about having two premier tight ends that like gets you hard? Because he has been chasing that for the entire time.
Yeah.
You could see it, Ben Watson and Daniel Graham. Even that before that, they had it with Fourier and Wiggy. And then it was Hernandez and Gronk. And now it's like, they're just like, I mean, they just signed Gesicki, right? Mike Gesicki from...
right. And they still have Hunter.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if he sees it as some sort of like matchup key where if you have those two tight ends, you can be more flexible because you can run and pass out of the same group of like players, or like what exactly you're doing. But he just has always seemed, and nobody like really talks about it. Like, oh, Belichick loves his tight ends because Mark Bavaro is his favorite son. But like it's always two tight ends. He always seems to want those two. And when it works, it works. I mean, just think of 2012, right?
Yeah.
Like that team was borderline unstoppable until Hernandez stopped it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's bring that mood down. That was cool. Whoops.
Let's just bring it to that.
All right, yeah. Speaking of things that didn't work out as well, here's somebody that I was fucking pumped about the Patriots signing, and that is 5'8", 180-pound Tim Dwight. I thought he was going to be the next Troy Brown, that like OG white slot receiver, the OG Welker Edelman mold. And he kind of looked it tonight, at least on punt returns. He
looked good.
Shifty as fuck. He broke pretty much all of them. And even if he didn't, he ran for 40 yards horizontally before getting tackled, which is awesome. And he's just like, he's that it was definitely that same mold, right? Of the tiny white slot receiver, quick and shifty, and has no regard for his or anybody else's safety.
Nope. And he's just electric on special teams.
Yeah. And again, that kind of goes back to Troy Brown as well, who, no longer he's doing punts, but he's like the hands guy, right? He's only receiving punts if he's standing inside his own 20 because he's got the hands for it. But he's not being asked to even return punts anymore.
Yeah.
But he still came back, and he, I think you found a quote. Let me see if I can pull it up. I don't know if you have it, about Troy Brown and his.
A lot of Troy Brown things in there.
Yeah, there. It was awesome. I just love reading about Troy Brown, but basically just talking about how like he just like came in and did his job. He didn't bitch about it. He didn't he could have gone to New Orleans. He could have made more money. It was like, I'm at the end of my career. My kids basically came to me like, we don't want to move. We want to play for the Patriots. He's like, fuck it. So he took the vet minimum, and like everybody there is like everybody on the team, like everybody that got quotes from, like, here's one from Rodney Harrison. I was elated, Harrison said. A guy like that deserves everything he can get. He's just a great player and just a great example for the young guys, how to handle yourself and how to do things consistently day in and day out. Troy adds a lot to this team in a lot of different ways, said Coach Bill Belichick, both on the field as a receiver and as a returner in his kicking game, and also just his presence and the competitiveness that he brings as an athlete and as a football player to the team. Those are all big positives. That's what he does. But his biggest positive was the fact that he didn't have to play cornerback anymore because they signed Dwayne Starks and Tyrone Poole to be getting healthy. But yeah, he's as long as we're a healthy football team and we've got guys in place that can play, I'm happy, he said. Fucking Troy Brown. Like he is obviously we're a Brown focused
podcast
because he's our brother and we share a name with him.
Right.
We grew up at that time, but he is also just like the prototypical New England Patriot.
I have two quotes here that are pretty good from him. I still approach it the same way. I want to go out there and play well and see where I'm at personally. I feel like I'm there ready to go and make some plays and hopefully impact the outcome of the game. Another one, I approached the situation like I was fighting for a job like everyone else. He said it was one of those deals where just because your situation or your status or longevity on the team doesn't always work out. It's one of those feelings where you made the right decision. Like, he is just guy. Dude, and he's going into his 13th year and he's still fighting for a position. Like,
yeah, and
he's the definition of the Patriot way.
Yeah, and he's cool with it. He's like, yeah, I mean, this is just how it is. Like, I fight for my position every year. Like, this, no hard feelings. That's cool,
right? He gets it.
Yeah, and then I would say, I don't know, play of the game, but I think kind of the score that put this game away, because the Colts, Jesus Christ, the Raiders kind of hung around.
Yeah,
thanks to Randy Moss, basically.
Yeah,
who set up 2 Raiders touchdowns.
Well, that and the special teams kept them in it.
Yeah. But it's 23-14 Patriots because Vinatieri had missed an extra point finally.
It got blocked.
It did get blocked. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So it's still a little too close for comfort. When the Patriots finally put a drive together, they hadn't been able to finish drives kind of the second half of this game. The Raiders had kind of figured some things out, but then Troy Brown, the wily vet, managed to get a pass interference call, like a defensive pass interference called in the end zone, which set them up 1st and goal on the 1, which then Corey Dillon converted like the next play to put them up 30-14. And even though the Raiders would manage to score another touchdown and make it 20-13, like it was never really in doubt because of Troy Brown coming in here and using his smarts, which is kind of like what got him through the NFL career all the way through. Like, he was just a super smart player too. Like, he always knew exactly what to do and when to do it. So Troy Brown, my game ball. What a surprise.
No surprise there. Yeah, I did have a couple football or not footballs.
Okay. All right.
So this was a quote by Madden.
Of course it was.
Zach Crockett is a load.
Just a load.
Is that football or not football?
I don't think that's football. I mean, that was John Madden, and John Madden is football. But calling somebody a load, I think that's derogatory.
Okay. So a little later in the game, he's talking about Fred Biletnikoff. Madden again. He said, "You're talking about a guy who has moves and hands. That's Fred Biletnikoff."
Moves and hands. Ooh, girl. That may also be illegal. Especially in 2023. Like, you can't have moves and hands. I think it's one or the other, to be honest. And you have to have consent. That's what I've learned.
Fair enough.
Jeez.
All right.
I like it.
There's another Madden.
No kidding.
They're going to come up on him, and they get right behind him.
Oh boy.
Yeah. For context, this is Randy Moss. He's talking about Randy Moss.
No, he's not. Actually, this one definitely, I think you made up. That's definitely not football. I remember Greg Brown, or that was one of the boys, used to work at Blockbuster, and they would recite. They had actually memorized all the names of the dirty movies, like in the adult section. Shaving Ryan's Privates, I believe, was my favorite. And I'm pretty sure what you just read was on the back of one of those boxes, those VHS tapes. So I'm going to say that is not football.
Okay, so we're 4 for 4 on not footballs.
So far, so good.
We've got a couple more here. See the crowd underneath that he draws, and then they can come right in behind where Randy Moss is short and hit the pass on that next level.
That's not even grammatically correct. I think it's John Madden having a Teddy Bruschi-esque stroke.
Okay, so that's we'll just put that in its own third category.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He leads and boom, right there, he gets his guy, and Corey Dillon comes in right behind him.
Wait, was this John Madden?
Yes, also John Madden. Yeah,
no kidding. That one could be football because he said Corey Dillon.
Yeah.
You almost
unless he's somewhere else with Corey Dillon, but never.
That's true. Yeah. I don't think Corey Dillon leaves the house, so that's probably.
I think we got two more. The big old nose tackle plugging up the middle all night, playing a 4-man line when you thought it was going to be a 3-man line. Okay. Is that football or not football?
That's not football. I've seen that movie. Mom, don't listen to this part. It's dirty.
And the last one is, these guys don't have great ball skills, but when you grow that big, you're not going to have great ball skills. But he showed some pretty good ball skills.
Oh, God.
Also John Madden.
Really?
Yeah.
Jonathan. There are children watching. That is a lot of ball skills. My goodness.
Yeah, he said ball skills 3 times in a matter of 5 seconds.
Yeah, good Lord.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You said he was on his game and in his prime, and I think he absolutely showed it there.
I think you're right. Oh God. All right. Well, I'm going to jump off of that because I have something that is. It's not football. It's just. It's. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just going to play it. I don't know how to explain this.
To the 33, new feature called Inside Out. Here's Tom Brady, Inside Out.
In high school, I was voted Mr. Studious. Joe Montana was my idol growing up. The strangest request I received from a fan is being a best man in somebody's wedding I've never met. If I could have dinner with one famous celebrity, it'd be Bono. When I hang up the spikes, I'm going to sleep till noon every day. I play this game for the ring.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What a loser. What an absolute fucking loser Tom Brady was in 2005. Because also, this is a podcast, it's an audio medium, so I should point out that he was he had the #1 clipper done, probably a Supercuts for that promo, looking like a 12-year-old. And talking about how, when I hang up the cleats, I'm going to sleep till noon. No, you're going to run a fucking scam NFT is what you're going to do. But Jesus Christ.
Well, no, he's got to be getting up early because he said anyone who thought that I'd be come back from retirement hasn't gotten their daughter a kitten. So
right, yeah, that's true, yeah.
He's got sleepless nights now.
He's a kitten dad. But all of those answers are I feel like I'm reading one of those Teen Bop magazines or whatever the fuck they were called.
And the way that he just talks when he's someone invited me to the wedding that I don't even know.
Oh my God. Coming up next on Nickelodeon. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, so but that's who he was back in 2000. And I forget about that. You see him screaming at Corey Dillon on the sidelines. Oh yeah, that's Tom Brady, we know. But then you see him in these public appearances. And it's like, oh, what a fucking cornball.
Yeah.
And then there was a story about like, was it like 6th grade or something? He had to like, he had to do 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, and then like jump rope 100 times every morning. And then he had to call his dad's personal trainer and tell him that he did it, or else his dad would fine him $1. But if he did it, he would get 25 cents. I'm like, what the fuck kind of...
Gotta earn a wage.
Like, what kind of kid is that, though? Like, just think about when you were in 6th grade, where you're like, oh, yeah, I gotta do my jump ropes. I get my quarter.
No.
Like, holy crap, no. Like, I really think, like, growing up, we all wanted to be a professional athlete. We wanted to be famous. We wanted to be, like, known for being Tom Brady. But the more I think about it as, like, a fucking grown adult,
no.
You actually, I think, have to have something wrong with you.
Absolutely.
To actually get there. Because there's this, like, drive that normal people don't have. And I don't think it's a healthy one. Like, it's probably like
obsessive compulsive.
Yeah, it's like this like mental illness that makes you like have to be the best. I mean,
I'm not saying that Tom Brady is mentally ill.
I think there might be something there. I mean, the man divorced Giselle so he could play one more year for a mediocre Buccaneers team.
They look good on paper.
Did it? I don't know. It was the same team.
They look like this Raiders team.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Very deceptive.
And are you telling me Kerry Collins doesn't have a? I mean, Kerry Collins is an alcoholic. So I mean, I think there's like there's something there that's like, yeah, I don't know. you got to have a no. What's the sorry? 2023. What's the correct term? It is neurodivergent.
Right.
I know this because I am neurodivergent. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, believe it or not.
Congratulations, same here.
How?
Well, ADD, not ADHD.
It's all the same.
That's my mother will point out.
Apparently, they're the same. Yeah, I am not hyperactive. I am inattentive. They're the two different kinds. Yeah. So my notes are much better after taking Adderall, which is impressive. As you can tell, tonight is worn off, which is why we have been all over the fucking place. Then we haven't really talked a ton about the game. So as a way to do that, let's do best and worst. You good for that?
Yeah.
All right, you go first. You are the guest. You get to go first.
All right. I had a best written somewhere. Where did it? Oh, my best was John Madden's Belichick impression. Did you hear that?
No, I think I missed that.
It was somewhere, I think, in the third quarter. It's when he's doing that. It's when they go over the pregame.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Subtly at the end, he goes, "Oh yeah, this is a bunch of baloney." And I was like, "Yeah." Again, just to not to keep harping on it, but you're just saying that Madden's in his prime here, and he's just executing on every level. He's like just hitting peak after peak after peak for me. So, my best was definitely John Madden.
That's fantastic.
So,
what about your worst?
My worst. So I think my worst was the pregame. It was that video. For if anyone is listening,
we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, so you'll be able to see it.
But like, if you watch it, be careful because it is literally just like an acid trip. It is unbelievable the visuals that are going on, and then just the panning, and it was just that was absolutely the worst.
Yeah, I watched it at lunchtime today, and my wife made me lunch, and there was mushrooms in the lunch. I'm like, are these regular mushrooms? I don't. Yeah, apparently they were. I asked her; they were fine. But yeah, it was just a weird fucking video.
Yeah, it was so.
Yeah, because especially now, like everything is so polished with this, like that sort of stuff the NFL does, or the Patriots do. Like they're all just like it's so smooth, it's so polished. Everything is like super rehearsed, and this was just like, we'll wing it. It's fine. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
We'll make it feel like MTV.
Yeah, right. We'll get everyone involved.
Yeah, and everybody was.
Someone called Freddie Prinze Jr. now.
Oh yeah.
We can't get Carson Daly. Get Freddie Prinze Jr. He's good.
All right. I think I could put both my best and worst being both Josh Miller, because he had 2 punts that were fucking phenomenal. Like in the third quarter, where he bombed a punt that both of them bounced inside the 1 yard line and then came straight back up and landed on the 3 without being like touchdown. Like that's just where it stopped. Fucking phenomenal punts.
Insane.
And then in the fourth quarter, with the Patriots up 30-14, he has his punt blocked, and the Raiders score a touchdown like a minute later, and so now it's like an actual game. Like, oh fuck. So that kind of sucked. But those, it was like just seeing Josh Miller out there. Did not make me miss. Fuck was his name?
Ken Walter.
Yes, thank you. Ken Walter in his nose and his face.
Yeah, that thing was a sausage.
And his face bar was like so low too that like it accentuated it. Like just bro, like put I don't know, put a visor on or something. just tone it down a bit. But I will say honorable mention goes to Rodney Harrison this game. I'm just going to give it to him because spoiler alert, we won't see him much this season. But he had an amazing tackle on the kickoff, which John Madden pointed out too, that the Patriots are one of the few teams that actually use the starting players, like high-end players on special teams. And Rodney Harrison, it looked like a blatant face mask. He like ran by the guy and just kind of like threw his arm out and caught the guy and just chucked him, like forearmed him down to the ground. Like that had to be a face mask. Turns out it wasn't. But it was so close. Like he basically grabbed him by the
horse collar.
Yeah, like the front of his jersey and just threw him to the ground one hand.
Yeah, well, he was behind him and he's like got the front of the jersey.
Yeah, and just like picked him up and just like fast tossed him down. But it looked so much like a face mask that one of the other Raiders players came over and tried to fight him. But the referees must have been in perfect position because he didn't get called for it. And then towards the end of the game, I might have been the third quarter, Kerry Collins did his patented chuck it up and hope Randy Moss is in the end zone on like 3rd and 40, whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
And it was double covered, and one of the people coverage him was Rodney Harrison. And Harrison got up livid, trying to complain to the referee that it was pass interference on Randy Moss.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
And then it actually paid off because at the end of the game, when the Raiders scored that touchdown off the block punt, they went for 2 and tried to do a lob to Randy Moss, which was broken up by, I think it was Samuel.
Yep.
And the referees threw a flag for offensive pass interference on that. So even if you had caught it, it would have been overturned.
I did have a note on that too, because Al Michaels was like so confused and like pissed off. And I'm like, dude, how can you think that is on Asante Samuel? He's about to get he's about to intercept the ball. And Randy Moss throws him down to the ground.
Just grabs him and chucks him on the ground.
Like a ragdoll, just beats him down.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then one last worst for Kerry Collins, because we're going to pile on him now that I know that he was a quitter. John Madden was talking about how in this new offense, Norv Turner likes to throw the ball down the field. Sets it up with the run, whatever. But John Madden's quote was, Norv Turner was saying that they put a camera in practice just on Kerry Collins' eyes to make sure he's always looking upfield. And I thought, that's probably not a sign of good things to come for Kerry Collins. If your fucking coach is like, we're going to record your eyes to make sure you're looking in the right spot, I feel like that should be kind of figured out by the time you're halfway through your NFL career.
Yeah, because he got drafted, 95, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so by that point, he's in the league 10 years.
Yeah, and he's still...
And you're telegraphing where you're going to throw the ball still?
Not great.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Can't imagine why it didn't work out.
But yeah, but to add to your like best and worst for Josh Miller, I was reading after that that the reason why that happened, and it was like, so they were asking Josh Miller about it. He's like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about it, but then he ended up, talking about it.
All right.
And if I remember correctly, he was like, yeah, it was kind of Ben Watson's fault on the left side. It was something on the left side.
Oh shit!
So
Ben Watson on the bus.
Yeah, so the left side got blown up, and then
damn,
because a lot of people were talking big about Ben Watson. So I do have a quote here from the Globe. So it says, he says, "So I'll be a rookie until," and then I don't have who wrote it. But it says, until Brady says you're not a rookie. Well, that may not be the case, but Brady hinted that maybe fans and media should curb their enthusiasm for the Patriots' hockey weapon for now. Ben's played one game, Brady said, and Ben has higher expectations than anyone on the field. In a lot of ways, Ben's trying to understand his position and find a role. I don't know what Ben can do. I've only seen him play one game. And Graham won 2 Super Bowls, and Christian won 2. I know that position is pretty good, and hopefully Ben adds to it. So, I mean, he did good. He also, he's actually one of my also best and worst.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, the best was
I'll add
the
him
first
to that
quarter,
now.
and the worst was the other 3.
Yeah, so
fair enough. My worst is Vladimir Putin for stealing the ring, and then also for trying to start World War III.
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah, I'll also tack onto that.
All right. So, what do we have next week?
We have Carolina Panthers.
Oh, right. This was the game where the Patriots were almost kind of looking ahead to the Panthers, right?
Yeah.
Where that's very unpatriot-like. But they might be kind of, overlooking these Raiders, which makes sense now. But
definitely.
We will see what happens as a rematch of the 2003 Super Bowl. I don't know anything about the Panthers at this point in 2005 because I think I have blocked 2005 out of my memory.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember this game, even this Oakland Raiders game. I don't know about you, but
I don't. I remembered bits and pieces as the game kind of went on, but I definitely had. And I don't really remember this 2005 season. The only thing I remember is just that uncertainty I felt coming into the season.
Yeah, I remember how it ended, and I think that's about it. But yeah, so a lot of this is kind of like watching these games for the first time again, which is interesting. So we will.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel good though.
Not particularly. No.
Feel queasy.
Yeah, we will see what happens when the Patriots travel to Carolina to face the Panthers, which I think they've had decent luck with over the years. But we'll see what 2005 brings next week on the Patriots Dynasty Podcast. Motherfucker, that's the wrong sound. It reset. Oh, I've lost my Greg noise. Have I?
Tune in next week to see how much of a blubbering little bitch Greg is on the Patriots Dynasty Podcast.
Yeah, still got it.
Oh, that's
just
not
like,
great.
Just
not
like
great
the
for
Oakland
Greg.
Raiders going to Gillette Stadium to take on the Patriots. I also have to knock a little rust off as we get back into the podcasting game. But Tim, this was lovely. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And hopefully we'll be doing this on a more regular basis. We're trying to do it weekly. But having said that, we will not be here next week. So 2 weeks, and then we'll be back for your weekly dose to get you through the off-season. Because right now there is nothing going on football-wise, even for the most diehard. Like, I am so done with mock drafts already. I just can't do it. So hopefully that means we will be bringing you some 2005 goodness, games that none of us remember because we've blocked out of our heads. So we will give you the good, bad, and the ugly, and we will see you then. See you later.
Later.